Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. And thank you so much for joining us. I hope you all are having a fantastic day so far as we help you out with it with a little bit of Computer America. So no matter what you're doing, driving, working, exercising, whatever you do when you listen to us, well, I hope we can make it a little bit better. So on today's show, we have a longtime Computer America correspondent, Mr. Dariush Derakhshani here with us. He is an expert on all things really graphics and computers in general, but of course he specializes in graphics, graphic design. He has worked for movie companies, things like that. I mean, really, when it comes to anything graphics, Dariush is your guy. So, yep, we have him on today, and we're going to have a number of topics to talk about, including, some laptops and some desktop replacements, and a number of other things that we're going to get into. For full show notes, you can always head on over to computeramerica.com. That is our home, and that is where you will find the show notes, which will have links to anything that we talk about, links to any products we mention, links to really just anything. So, if you're busy, hey, after the show, head on over there and we'll have everything ready to go right there for you. Also, while you're there, be sure to check out the social media contest. That is already on its way. And, a lot of you have entered, and I'm really hoping a lot more of you do because we have a great prize from Logitech. That's right, we're giving away the M720 Triathlon mouse, which, Triathlon, it makes perfect sense because it's a multi-device mouse. So with one mouse connected to 3 different computers at once, thanks to the dongle as well as Bluetooth connected. And with the push of a button, you can control 3 different computers with one mouse. Very, very cool. So we're giving that away to a lucky listener this Friday. Could be your name that we read live on the air. And the last thing over at Computer America you should check out is the live video stream, because not only do you get to listen to Computer America, but you can watch Computer America. And hey, adds just that little bit extra here on our show. So with all of that said, I think we're just going to introduce our guest. And again, Correspondent, they are the proud, the few, and they are, little insane because, hey, we keep having them back on. And, it's always a lot of fun. So, like I said, Dariush Derakhshani, welcome back onto the Computer America Show. Thank you so much. Oh.
How's it going? Sorry, I was still muted.
No problem. No, yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And, definitely glad to hear from you. So, just before we get things started, maybe this is someone's first time listening to you here on Computer America. So, a little bit of background. What is Dariush Derakhshani?
It's a global brand. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I teach animation and visual effects in Southern California at a university and an institution. I have been publishing a lot of books and videos online with computer graphics, CG, particularly using the Maya software from Autodesk Maya, as well as a little bit of 3D Studio Max along with my wife. But I spent a good 17 years or so in the industry, in commercials and TV and movies as well. So that's part of what I'm teaching. And I still keep a foot in that, going on set to supervise like a TV show that I did this last break I had from school, right. And maybe doing some commercials over the summer as well. So a lot of little things going on right now, but that's sort of what I do. But I've been writing about computers for graphics use for quite a long time. I've reviewed lots and lots of hardware over the years. So it's kind of nice to kind of nerd out and talk about these things with you guys. So I appreciate the forum.
Oh no, our pleasure, and it is a lot of fun. So and before we get into a couple things, because you have been every time you come on, you seem to be testing a new piece of hardware that's and I think for your case, your computers can can get you by for quite a while. I mean, I think the average person out there listening, your hardware is indeed overkill, but I mean for you, it's time saved and just makes everything move faster. So we're going to talk about some hardware, but before we do that, I actually have kind of an off-topic one. It may harken back to your experience as a professor, and it may not be one to one because obviously I don't know how much math you teach and how much math you really test on uh,
Hmm.
during your courses. But we had an article that we didn't get to yesterday, but I really wanted to, and it was this idea of an app. It's called it's called Desmos, I believe it is, and it's an app for your smartphone that essentially replaces the TI and Casio calculators that are standard in universities all across the country. And as someone who I'm sure every one of your students has $1,000 computer just to really make ends meet in your class.
Hmm.
I was kind of getting want to get your feeling about technology in the classroom, like because for you it's necessary, but for a lot of students it's maybe considered cheating, maybe a distraction. But the idea that smartphones as a learning tool, is that up and coming in universities?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of students are they're kind of that generation that's all connected. So that's what they expect. They understand that, or I should say, they expect that classes be connected. There's lots of online platforms like Blackboard, for example, is an academic platform where you can share syllabus and have students drop off their homework all online digitally. Textbooks certainly have been in ebook and device formats for a few years now, and it's steadily more and more moving to digital delivery for that because it cuts a lot of the publishing and physical costs of doing that kind of business. But since students are I should say learners really, because there's adults certainly that are learning this kind of stuff all
Oh,
the
sure.
time, but the younger generation, they have an expectation of everything being available wherever you go, from the ubiquity of Dropbox and Google Drive. Students have access to gigabytes for free online where they keep stuff, so they kind of don't have this book bag mentality that I certainly grew up with in school, where you're packing your bag full of books from period to period or class to class. Now it's sort of you just show up and you log in, and there's most of your stuff right there. So I remember back in the days when I was taking, physics and calculus courses in college,
Mm-hmm.
both of which I was terrible at. We would have these HP calculators, these reverse Polish notation graphing calculators, and if that's on your phone, great. If some classes, I certainly remember quite a few exams where the professors did not allow the use of our calculators. It would go the same in classes today where you're not allowed to use your smartphone or tablet in those cases. So,
Right. No, it's a very interesting idea to me because when I first heard about this, I mean, just in like the past 10 years, I mean, TI Texas Instrument calculators, they were all the rage. The TI 83 just came out, about 10 years ago when I was first starting higher level math, and they're like, wow, these things are so powerful. And teachers were confused about how much technology do we let in kids, math classrooms. And some of my math teachers, they were what I think was very forward thinking, saying, "Well, calculators aren't exactly going to go extinct in the next 5 years. They're going to be using these in the real world, so might as well teach them how to use them and use them more efficiently. Whereas others were, no, they need to learn the fundamentals. No, they need to learn the right way, and it's this back and forth. So, just I guess how you're seeing technology in the classroom is, pretty interesting to me, I guess, because it changes, and if you have been to college in 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 plus years, it's changed definitely. I would I would imagine.
Yeah, it's the landscape's definitely different than when I was in grad school even. It's really quite refreshing to see that people have access to information right away. But again, that's just the expectation. I sort of have that now as well, where I keep a lot of what I do in cloud storage, namely a Google Drive. I put a lot of stuff up there.
Hmm.
But I'm coming to need that as well because I don't want to be carrying around my little data center wherever I go. Obviously, I have a USB stick on my keychain that I use a lot, but overall, I'd like to be able to access what I have on my server at home in as many different places as I can because, it's sort of the what do they call it? The gig economy, where you're having to do lots of multiple gigs to kind of make your way through life. It's not like it was 30, 40 years ago where you just have a job. You're going to be in that job for, 30, 40 years till you retire and get a gold watch and all that. You're having to piecemeal your life together from different facets. So I'm in a number of different places in any given week, different classrooms, different studios that I go to, consulting with this person or that place. So I want to be able to get everything there too. And that's the mentality that we have in classes now as well is everything should be kind of at the fingertips. And this is where my age comes in. And I buck the system a little bit, where I insist that everybody use the server in the classroom to dump all their stuff and not send everything online. But I think I'm going to date myself here, and I'm going to have to give that up eventually because more and more students are like, "Why aren't you on Blackboard yet? Why can't I just email you this homework yet?" And
Yeah.
it's a different sort of thinking on my end where I just have to manage yet another portal that I've got into the outside world.
I kind of felt the same way. I mean, in my last maybe year or two of college, Blackboard was just making its debut, and it was a headache to begin with. But I can see how they're trying to unify the learning experience, and Blackboard. It's good to hear that it's definitely continuing on because that was pretty cool. But no, and to segue very nicely into our next subject is the idea that hey, you don't want to, like you just said, you don't want to lug everything around with you. You want to have in the cloud, USB, what have you. But you mentioned that sometimes you go and you help movies and you're on set and giving advice about CGI, what have you. And
Mhm.
sometimes you do need some computing power that's that you can just take with you, a mobile workstation, if you will. So something that we touched on last time you were on, but something that I think we really should reiterate on are these mobile desktop replacements from MSI. So just a quick overview about what caught your eye about these these, and again, I don't want to call them laptops because that just says that it's like every other MacBook. No, these kind of have a more hefty purpose, right?
Absolutely. They're more professionally certified, I guess is a way to put it. They have some pretty beefy specs. MSI through Post Magazine, which I report for, reached out and wanted to see if I wanted to get my hands on a few of their new workstations that are coming out. And the one I picked up on first is the WS63, which is a thin and light workstation, something I've been very interested in for quite a few years now because of the portability. back in the day, the first laptop workstation that I got, I think, was the Dell M50, which was a 17-inch. It was, it was a bulky laptop, and it was one of the first that said, we have a workstation capable graphics in it. We have a good, strong processor. It wasn't about trimming down the performance of the machine to suit its portability, but kept portability certainly in mind. And couple of years ago, the first real sort of sub notebook at a workstation scale that I saw was a 14-inch ZBook from HP, which is still probably one of my favorite little sub notebooks. Thin, light, portable, but still had, I believe it was a Fire Pro from AMD, which is their professional class, or was their professional class. I think the naming nomenclature is different now, but
Hmm.
that was a professional class of video card, good amount of video memory in it, and that sort of kicked off a real interest I have in these thin and lights. So the WS63 is, I got to tell you, it's kind of neat. It's just barely 4 pounds, and it has a Pascal based Quadro 3000, which for a thin and light, I expect to see the Quadro, 1100 or 1200 level,
Hmm.
maybe even the 2000. So seeing the 3000 level card in this is
I
pretty
mean,
sweet.
and I mean, what's the trade off on that? Because obviously it's going to be power wise and power consumption, but the Quattro P3000, like, is this thing, if you set it in your lap, you're gonna burn a hole in your shorts? Like, what are some of the trade offs for the WS63?
Well, compared to a regular laptop, the workstation definitely does need to displace more heat because it's going to be cooking the CPU and the GPU a little bit more than usual. When you look at like a full-on desktop replacement gaming laptop, it's pretty much the same thing. You're going to hit the GPU really hard, and you need to displace a lot of heat. So that those tend to be a little bit bulkier and they're louder than you would expect. Like when you compare this to a MacBook Pro, for example, that thing was pretty quiet and aesthetically pretty solid and pleasing. But my 17-inch MacBook from a few years ago, that actually got so hot it would be uncomfortable to sit on my lap.
Mm-hmm.
Now I haven't, I just got the WS63 from MSI just a couple of days ago, enough to start, uh, turning it on and doing an unboxing video, which I'll make available to you guys when I put it online.
Very cool.
The So I haven't really beat it up yet. I usually take these laptops because they're workstations. I run them through a week of just sitting on my desk, running through a CPU intensive 24 hours a day tasks to see how stable they are, how hot they get, how loud they get. Typically, these machines tend to get a little bit louder than normal laptops because they're pushing a lot more air, and the thinner and lighter they get, the more air they have to displace. So they tend to be a little bit louder, but I don't know on this WS63. I can tell you with the Dell thin and lights that I've played with, the 5510 and the disastrous 3800, they get fairly loud when the thing is full bore running. But as far as trade off, they're that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
You expect your laptop to get that loud when you're running, a full on 3D game as well. So I think in the end, what these bring to the table is that sort of professional certification, that professional level of video card, the error checking memory on them, the driver set, that sort of thing is more important. So it's not so much the raw speed. So I guess the trade-off would be in a comparable gaming system. This has a professional video card, which is probably clock for clock a little bit slower than than an adequate counterpart on the gaming front
Mm-hmm.
because of the error checking and the more certified driver set. for it.
Right. And one of the trade-offs that I feel you really do pay for, well, it's not even that I feel, it's, guaranteed, is you are going to be paying for form factor because, Razer, if we're talking, kind of gaming is, like you said, one of the best comparisons to a workstation because, they're both enthusiasts in their own ways. One's a professional enthusiast, the other is a hobbyist enthusiast, where gamers, Razer recently had one. It was just a mock-up, and it was like 3 screens or something like that. And actually, no, I take it back. It wasn't Razer. Razer did have the 3 screen mock-up, but it was another company, and they essentially had a desktop replacement solution for gamers that came in at about $10,000. So, is there any kind of MSRP for what we're talking about here? Because again, that's going to be another trade-off. Is you're paying for the form factor. Everything is condensed and crammed into a semi-portable or, a much more portable state.
Absolutely, absolutely. The I don't believe I have pricing that I can share quite yet. I'd
Okay.
have to check the side, but I can certainly share that with you online as soon as I get
Sure.
these systems aren't quite available yet in stores like MSI usually goes through outside sellers. They don't sell directly, such as Amazon or Newegg and such. And still, the what's available on the site is they're not this line quite yet. So I think their channels have not yet started shipping those quite
Right.
yet.
Would you be comfortable with me googling it because I did and I found a number and
Oh, yeah,
again.
no, fantastic. Yeah, what did you find, Ben?
Right, yeah. I found this coming from Gentech PC. I'll be honest, never really heard of them, but they sell the MSI WS63. And yeah, and they're having it. It's on sale, cash price for $2,300, but $2,400 starting price.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Typically, these types of thin and lights are gonna. I mean, it depends on the configuration. With a
Oh, for sure.
P3000 card in it, certainly you're going to be in the 2000 range. You can get into the thin and light workstation class probably in the low thousands. 11, 1200. I think the HBook Studio has a couple of entries in there as well. So it's a range. You can go
Right.
all the way up as
Well,
well.
right, right, and of course, speaking to that range, if you're watching the video portion, we have the press release that MSI sent out. They debuted these actually out at CES this year, so it's very cool that you're finally getting your hands on them. But as I understand it, you also want to try to get your hands on the entire lineup. But to go from the sleek and profile one that is going to, of course, appeal to I think a lot of people. There's another one above that if we want to, kind of switch gears here a little bit,
Yeah,
and it's the WT. Let me get this right. The WT73 VR, and
that's right.
it's a Hulk. It's a beast.
Yeah, absolutely. And that has a Pascal-based P5000 Quadro, which you're getting into the Titan X sort of performance at that point. And that has not quite that far up, but it's got a 16 gig video memory, GDR5. It's really quite a beast on that one. But that promises to actually replace your desktop.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and it promises to replace your desktop, and it might just be heavier than your desktop.
Yeah, right.
This thing's coming in at just under 9 pounds. So a newborn baby. It's but it does come with a lot of bells and whistles. Just kind of poking around, and again from the same publication as the previous. This one coming in about twice as much as the previous one, about $4,700. But and you can kind of speak to this because again, you are in an industry where having the ability to kind of go, and show people on site what you're talking about. I mean, is this really going to? Is this line of desktop replacement going to appeal to any? Like, is this going to catch on?
Um, well, that's tough to say, honestly. The desktop replacement for a workstation, I think, is a little bit of a tough sell. I could see it as a gaming workstation. I'm sorry, gaming portable machine, certainly, because LAN parties and, going around. But as far as professional workstations, you tend to generally be in a studio or on site. And if you travel, if you're going on site to places, having a thin and light, I think, is more worthwhile. Certainly, the thin and light WS63 wouldn't be my primary. It could be close to a primary machine for me, but the WT73, which would be much more of a primary machine, I still rely on a desk-bound machine that I can sort of fiddle with and put things in and take things out and upgrade at my own sort of build cycle.
Right.
Um, this kind of machine, this kind of portable power is really great in some cases. Certainly CAD and CAM and manufacturer stuff like that, when you need to be on the road and need to have a really powerful station to show stuff. In media and entertainment, it ends up being a little bit more, I believe, the portability of it. Because when you're on set, you don't really need that much power because you're not doing the bulk of the actual heavy lifting.
Hmm.
That ends up going back to the minions that you've got at your studio. But you may still be doing some proof of concepts and things like that. But I think the desktop replacement, I think, is a tougher sell for workstations. But I do really like the fact that this is a 17-inch. I'm a screen hog. The more screen I have, the better,
Hmm.
because I have so many windows open, so many things going on at once, and the clarity, the color, the vibrancy, the gamut that you get on screens is really, really important for workstation class. And this is where MSI has what they call their true color technology, which is said to have calibration, so it delivers colors properly. This is something that I really liked in the HP laptops with their 10-bit technology, which gives you really good color range. And I think that is worth more than just the raw compute power, because that's what you see, and you want to be able to have a calibratable experience. So what you see is what your client is going to end up getting.
Right. And the only thing I can kind of kind of poke at is that these are supposed to be, very, very advanced. They're really going to get you where you want to go. You can kind of see that with the fact that the higher end one, they say virtual reality ready. So obviously, they expect some kind of gaming to happen on these systems. Virtual reality is by and large used in gaming for now. But I will say that the one thing that they really don't have going for it, and if you could speak, well, man, we have about a minute left. This hour's flying by already. But uh, if we could talk real quick about the rise of importance, and I've noticed this in my gaming circles, and I've noticed this with talking to monitor manufacturers, the idea that 60 hertz just isn't cutting it anymore. A lot of people want 144 hertz or 120 minimum. So, do you feel that 60 hertz is kind of already behind the curve, or do you think that 144 is just asking too much right now?
Well, certainly, I think higher hertz is going to give you a better screen appearance. Back in the day of CRT, that was the thing you looked at for eye fatigue, is how fast you can refresh. So I think 60 hertz is minimum at this point. I would like to see the 4K displays and finer resolution, like a denser dot pitch in screens, sort of like the Retina displays that we've seen, but that actually work best because 4K native resolution, your stuff is really tiny unless you're going to magnify using Windows 10 magnification, which doesn't really work with some of
Right. Right. No, Oh no, it's definitely evolving, and we're definitely going to get back to this. But everyone, music means we have to take a break. We'll be right back with more Dariush Derakhshani and more, well, nerd talk as we come back to Computer America and more. Hey everyone, we'll be right back.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. We are 31 minutes past the hour as we continue on again with Mr. Dariush Derakhshani. And we're talking, right now, we're just wrapping up MSI. And, you know, they have a new lineup of desktop replacements. But MSI, they are certainly not the only ones. Like I said before, I've seen some from the likes of course, Razer. But theirs are, of course, proof of concept. I think Origin had some kind of all-in-one gaming computer that was, multi-thousands of dollars. This idea that, you don't need the big bulky desktop tower to have big bulky desktop power is definitely a thing that I feel like they're definitely going to try. And, because more people and from more lifestyles are gaming, people travel, people do it for business. And they have money to splurge on this kind of thing. These kinds of machines, though, Dariush, I should really say, they do seem kind of like a luxury compared to a laptop or a desktop computer.
When you look at the WT73, they're geared for content creators, they're geared for studios, they're geared for professional users, which tend to have different budgets than personal people putting money out for a school computer or gaming computer. And I think that's why the specs on the WT73 VR are so beefy, is because content creators with VR, especially, it's such a burgeoning field. People in it, they're the cowboys of this age. There's a lot of stuff going around all over the place, and having a machine that is going to run your Vive or your Oculus apps properly is going to be really important. And I think this is one part of that market that this particular desktop replacement, the 73, is going to captivate. Sure, it's 9 pounds. You're not going to be sitting in on an airplane if you're lucky enough not to get dragged off, and using this with the little tray table or anything like that. But this is a lot more feasible than packing a tower into a Pelican case and shoving it in the carry-on space or checking it. So I think this is probably the most exciting part for this particular one, where the other one we've been talking about, the Thin and Light WS63, it's going to be a little bit more toward artist-friendly, on set, on location, being able to get a majority of your work done while still reporting back to your home base. So I think that's budget-wise, that's why you're in the $2,000 and almost $5,000 range for these two machines, is because they're going to be aiming more to studios and companies. They're like, you know what, we're going to need to get a couple of these for our people moving around.
Right. Yeah. And so again, we're going to be seeing more of these, and very cool that you have your hands on them. Looking forward to seeing what you kind of make of them, because like you said, you just got it, and it's time to kick the tires, so to speak. So, all right, and I think moving on from those, we can talk a little bit about, I haven't had anyone on the show to, because I invite people from, just yesterday we talked to. Well, actually, no. Just a couple days ago, not yesterday. I'm sorry. A couple days ago, we talked to Blue Microphone, and talked about the microphone. The week before that, we have gaming companies and things like that. But whenever I invite people on, though, they always want to talk about their own stuff. They don't want to talk about my stuff. So I haven't had a good chance to talk about a recent computer build that I just completed on my system. You do this, it sounds like, as often as we have you on, you do this monthly, but upgrading your computer, I mean, it's would you classify it as fun, necessary, or the cheap way out?
I would say all of the above. I have fun doing it. I do it because it's cheaper than buying a whole new system, which I'm going to end up tinkering with anyway. So, every couple of years is necessary, and I've been a little bit disappointed because the CPU advancement hasn't quite gone the way I expected, at least in the Intel lineup. The newer chips don't promise that much more performance gain over
Intel.
the yeah,
And just real quick, Intel didn't expect Intel to go the way it did. I mean, its own
sure.
roadmaps, they all showed that, we are currently on for anyone keeping track, we are on like the 7700, 7600. We are on the seventh generation of what was supposed to be a 2 to 3 generation chip. I mean, or chipset or die size.
Right.
Intel didn't expect this either.
Yeah, no, the next round is going to be on the same die size. I've got a Skylake CPU, the 6700K, the newer, what is it, KB Lake,
Yep.
that's out now. I mean, 10-15% performance maybe. The I think the gigahertz on that top chip is a 4.2, and I've got a 4.0. So there's not a whole lot of incentive for me to really upgrade my system until something a little bit more revolutionary perhaps comes along. And I've been, you and I talked a little bit about the AMD chips, and what they bring to the table is pretty fascinating as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little disappointed. I don't get to get on Amazon, get a whole bunch of stuff, and take a weekend putting a new computer together, which I like to do every 18 months to 2 years at the most.
Right.
So I think this time's gonna probably stretch to 3 years.
Right, and speaking to my personal experience, I did get my hands on the 7700K. That is what I put in mine, and let's see, I really, and really per your recommendation, more than any other, I
Hmm.
upgraded the CPU, of course. I upgraded the RAM because I was like, hey, you know what you don't need? 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and so I got that, and I
Right.
could not be
Yeah.
happier. I got that, and I got M.2 uh, SSD. Like it's
Fabulous. Yeah.
oh my god, I cannot speak high. Like everyone out there, if you're listening and are a fan of building your own computers, I cannot speak highly enough about the Samsung SSD M.2 technology. It's great. I mean, have you had one in your computer yet, or just
Yeah,
heard about
actually,
them?
yeah, no, I upgraded I had a Samsung 950 SSD connected to the SATA port for quite a while, and relatively recently, I got the 960 from Samsung, the M.2. My motherboard has an M.2 slot on it already.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little nervous about being able to clone my SATA SSD to the M.2 and still have Windows 10 boot without a full reinstall, and it worked flawlessly. And now I've got twice as much. I've got a 512 gigabyte, and I throw stuff on my desktop with reckless abandon, and I'm getting 100 megabytes a second every now and then when I'm moving stuff around internally. When I'm going to my SATA drives, that drops down to more like 60. But when I'm going to my NAS on my gigabit Ethernet, I'm hitting 90 and 100 megs a second on some of these transfers, and that's just that's par for the course for the M.2. It can even go faster.
Right.
So if you're working M.2 to another M.2, you're going to get crazy speeds.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm running just just the one, and I have, of course, my larger terabyte, just traditional spinning hard drive kind of deal.
Hmm.
And I'm currently running, if I believe I got the right one, the Samsung 850 Evo, but it's like a 500 gig. I mean, this thing, like,
Hmm.
and SSDs, their big claim to fame when they first came out was, remember how it takes your computer 2 minutes to warm up?
Yeah, right.
Well, with SSDs, it took, 20, 30 seconds from nothing to boot up.
Yeah.
M.2, I mean, I swear, my system takes about 7 seconds. It's
Yeah.
crazy fast.
Yeah, it's unbelievable when I'm the thing that slows my system down the most is just the motherboard post.
You can
That's
change
really
that. You
yeah.
can you can change that, and I found that setting because I've been doing a lot of tweaking with the
Mhm.
motherboard BIOS. But it's like, but then you have to be really quick if you want to change something about hitting that F2 key within that 1 second time frame that you give yourself. Like, you can change it, but you probably shouldn't change it. But no, and also I changed the motherboard. Tried out ASUS. Might have to send it back. I have a little annoying glitch with the sound issue, but I don't know if that's
Mhm.
user error or not. But some things I really did want to kind of mention were about building this. I only accidentally wiped out my hard drive
Oh
twice.
no.
Yeah, so
Oh no.
that that was fun. So backup, backup, backup. I did not do that.
Yeah.
But well, like the only thing I did was I made a copy of all my files. So like I was hoping I could just have all my systems and everything kind of one to one transfer over. I backed up
Hmm.
everything I really cared about, but like I got to the point where I was trying to reallocate the memory, and like there was like this weird partition. I was trying, I was going into programs I don't even know about, trying to reportion these sectors on my hard drives,
Hmm.
and I deleted something that I think makes the whole
Oh
boot up
no.
process happen. Like, it can get
Yeah.
really confusing. Do you go anywhere for kind of resources when you do these kinds of things?
Yeah, no, I hit up Google and YouTube to see what other people do. But the what is it, the UEFI, as opposed to the master boot record, so you can have much larger hard drives. Stuff like that makes things a little bit wary.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's a partition on some drives where the Windows boot record or whatever it's called is kept. So I try to be careful on those, but
That's what I
I
deleted.
use
That is what I
yeah.
deleted. Yeah.
Yep, yep. That can be because it's like maybe 100 megs or something like that. It's it doesn't look like it's being used, but it is.
Yeah.
So you want to be careful. What I do is I use a Cronus True image, and I image my system, my C drive, probably on a monthly basis. I do a full image, and I keep probably a few months of images on my NAS, my uh, network attached storage
Right.
is NASA's right. So I keep it on my NAS, just in case, because I learned this the hard way a long time ago when I was fiddling around with moving C drives and stuff like that in the mechanical drives where I would use Norton Ghost. Before I got into Norton Ghost, I would constantly be reinstalling Windows, and that just sucks up hours and hours and hours. So I'm an image queen at this point. So let me ask you this, Ben. You were moving from a mechanical drive to the M.2, or were you in an SSD?
Yeah, mine was a little bit different because I had my traditional setup was a 32 gigabyte SSD that kind of had my operating system and a few things on
Mm-hmm.
it, and I had a traditional hard drive for storage and that kind of thing. Obviously, 32 gigs. It just had like barely the operating system and
Yeah.
like really nothing else on it. So like it was a bit of a struggle to get the the C drive to go over to the new one. And like because it's M.2, I was able to keep the SSD in there as well. So now I have 3 hard drives in there. I was like, hey, why not? It's just gonna be laying around. So I have
Absolutely. Yeah.
three hard drives, and like I got it, and it was working, but it wasn't perfect because for some reason the M.2 I was trying to get every bit of memory I could out of it, and instead of giving me 500 gigs, it was giving me something like 300 gigs, and I was trying to reportion the not the sectors but the partitions on it,
The partition table. Yeah, right.
and yeah, that's where it went wrong. That's where I started deleting things that should not have been deleted.
Yeah, right. But you were able to repartition it back to normal eventually, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I completely wiped it out, fresh install, and luckily I did back up all of my stuff. Like the D drive has all, like, I stored everything on there. The D drive was not touched at all. So like I
Yeah.
completely wiped out the C drive, but the D drive was perfectly fine. So that was a good thing
Yeah, no,
to do.
no, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. I had the same thing going on. My system had a 128, I'm sorry, it was a 90 gig SSD from a while back, and that ended up just running out of space because Windows 10, it metastasizes like a cancer. It just grows
It
and
does.
grows and grows, and it's hard to know what you can delete and what you should leave alone. And I belong to the club. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I've stopped messing around and micromanaging my C drive a while ago, and I decided that let's just go bigger. So I went from the 90 gig to a 256 SSD, which is what I had right before this M.2,
Mm-hmm.
and that started running out because I was starting to use the desktop a little bit. It's much more convenient, and that started running out of space. So now I've got the M.2, and I've got those two old SSDs. The 30 gig I just keep as a scratch drive where I throw temporary files, things like that for fast access.
Right.
And the other drive I use as a secondary where I install some programs, some games. I've got an Xbox One, so some games I can play on both my Windows 10 and my Xbox, and those things take up some room. Let me tell
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
I just put I forget the game I just put on here. It was, I think, 46 gigs,
Yeah.
and
That it,
that's huge.
Xbox has this weird thing where they give you, when I bought my Xbox One, they had like 512 was like standard or 1 terabyte. But then their games, like I downloaded a Destiny and like all the expansions. That stupid thing took up 300 gigs. It's like, thanks for the terabyte, but your games are massive.
Yeah, they're huge. So yeah, that's a good reason to keep your SSDs and not try to eBay them or give them
Right.
away to people. Um, my son's machine also had the same problem where he had a 30 gig boot up drive in the Windows XP days, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
and that just quickly became paltry. So I upgraded his machine, I think, to a 128 with a 1 terabyte mechanical drive as well. So
Right.
everything installs on there, but Windows and only Windows is on C.
Right. And I tried it. I tried it the first way. Of course, it was a 32 or 64, whatever it was, about 5 6 years ago. And now I have the 500 gig, M.2. And I gotta say, folks, it didn't make much sense 5 6 years ago because SSDs were so expensive, pound for pound. Gig of storage for gig of storage. But nowadays with my M.2, that was, I kind of splurged because I went with the larger size because I was tired of that problem of running out of space on my C drive. But that was like $200 for, what is woefully, overperforming compared to most SSDs. Memory is worth it now. I would say, don't bother going super small to save money. Just get a decent size C drive and you're going to save yourself a lot of headache for really years to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the biggest difference you're going to see when upgrading your machine is going from a mechanical to an SSD, SATA or otherwise, and then going to an M.2. The M.2, I mean, the boot times will be a little bit better, but really where it's going to sing is in its portability and also its file transfer.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's really where it's better than the SATA-based SSDs. But that
for
is,
sure.
yeah, get a good quality brand, and I swear by the Samsungs. Used to have an Intel that worked really well too. So yeah, spend your pennies wisely on a nice SSD. Get a bigger one, and you don't have to do what I did, which is to incrementally upgrade and penny pinch your way up the ladder. Just go straight up to the top to what you can afford.
Right, and so we did the memory. That was great. I did, of course, a new motherboard, and the motherboard. Like surprisingly, there's a lot of selection out there when it comes to the motherboard. Like I thought it was just kind of either you go Sabertooth or Asus or whatever, and there was like one choice of motherboard. There's a lot of different motherboards at like really every $20 gets you a new motherboard between like 80 70 $80, and it goes all the way up to like $350 to $400, and like every $20 there's a new one. So that was
Yeah.
surprisingly complicated to pick a motherboard.
Yeah. I agonized over getting the Asus Sabertooth that I have now. I think it's a Z170 chipset
Mm-hmm.
for this what is my chipset called? I forget. Um, but yeah, it's dizzying. And honestly, when I look at workstation motherboards, they are so much more simplified because they don't want to have all the different buses and channels and bells and whistles and USB-C this and they don't want to kind of do that. But motherboards are so feature rich at this point. It's tough to go, and I really recommend going with a quality, solid brand because so many stability issues could arise from a poorly created motherboard that you don't even know about. You may think it's Windows, you may think it's your memory, you may think it's one of your peripheral cards, but the motherboard is just it's
Right.
the nervous system for your
Yeah.
computer, so you want to choose wisely.
Which is kind of why I'm having this little bit of an issue where it's not even intermittent, it's constant. I have this thing where whenever audio is playing, I get a low hiss. Yes, it's happening even now, but I think it might be from the motherboard because I've tried reconnecting everything, and I think it might just be built in. But because it is the motherboard, it's so low level. I am dragging my feet like crazy because I don't want to replace it. It's gonna be a
It's a
pain.
major pain. Yeah,
Yeah,
major pain. It's most probably electrical noise coming from the motherboard, but I've heard this about Asus motherboards a little bit before where their audio driver base, there was something wrong in there. So keep your eyes open for that. But, one thing you can do if you can borrow somebody else's like USB sound device, that may alleviate a lot of these issues because onboard sound is still, I mean, it's pretty great. It definitely works pretty well, but for hardcore gamers, for people that really want audio quality, you want to remove the audio channel off
right,
of the motherboard proper and use like a Sound Blaster card or even, USB ones are really pretty great now as well. So
right.
that's what I use
It,
in my.
it's it's and again, not to pick on Asus. I mean, bad boards happen all the time.
Sure.
It may be even user error. I definitely won't rule that out the way I installed this.
Right.
But when it came down to it, I'm thinking I'm just going to buy a dedicated sound card. It's totally not necessary for, like you said, a lot of people, but preferable to some. I think I'm just going to go that route. It would be much
It's a
easier.
lot simpler.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, and but again, overall, talking about the upgrading process, one of the last points I wanted to talk about, and before the show, Dariush, I asked you what you knew about cooling because this was something that I do. It's not exactly recommended, but at this point, it's so standard for so many people that Asus and the hardware that or the software that came with the Asus BIOS and Intel actually has their own software that comes with this as well. But overclocking your hard drive
Hmm.
and making sure that it's stable and it won't crash every 2 seconds it's gotten really advanced. It's not this kind of, plug, wait and see if you crash, and if you crash and you have to
You're
go back
right,
and change it.
right.
Like, it's gotten much more advanced. So, like I said, I recently upgraded to the i7 7700K from Intel. It's their latest one. Definitely made for overclocking. That's what the K is supposed to,
Yep.
designate. And the only stable option I was able to get was 4.5 from 4.2,
Ooh, very nice.
which is okay. But fun fact with the Asus motherboard, there's a built-in option. Like it kind of sensed I had the i7, and it said there's a built-in option for, hey, do you want to bump this up to 5 gigs? And I'm like, heck yeah, I do.
Ooh, wow,
And
yeah.
yeah, it crashed and burned spectacularly. So it was all heating issues though. It was it just couldn't
Sure,
handle
yeah.
the heating. So I
Yeah.
mean, overclocking. What kind of experience and what kind of heating cooling do you kind of deal with?
I personally don't overclock. I can certainly appreciate and like the fact that you're pushing your machine to its limits. That's pretty cool. I tend to stay away from it, not for any reason other than um, I just don't want to spend the time doing it.
Oh, it's a
But
headache. It is definitely a
yeah,
headache.
it can definitely even as you said, a lot of these motherboards have drivers and softwares and BIOS that make it a lot easier to do that. But you've got to make sure that you've got a good memory as well, because traditionally when you're overclocking your CPU, you are probably also overclocking your memory bus as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure your memory can handle it as well as the CPU. But cooling, from my perspective, has more to do with the efficiency and the sound. Because I do a lot of recording. As I've mentioned before, I'm recording a course on V-Ray rendering with the Plural site team, and that is on my main server, which sits under my desk. And I did a whole bunch of stuff where I tried to put some acoustic panels between the computer and where I sit to try to drown out some of the fan noise. And I started doing a lot of research on liquid cooling.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing that I found is a good, efficient air cooler can be just as good as a sealed circuit liquid cooling system that allows you to overclock as well, but also in terms of noise as well. They're on parity, where several years ago when I was building the system before this one, I
Mm-hmm.
was looking to liquid cooling, and it just seemed like it was too much of a headache. But that was sort of the only place you could go where you could really overclock your system. But now that Scythe, I think, is a company that makes some pretty big coolers. Zalman, I'm a big fan of. They make some excellent, efficient, and quiet CPU coolers. Huge, huge heat sinks with large airflow capable fans. I think that's a great way to go. You just have to get a really good cooler, and you can probably spend, probably 60 to $100 and get a really good cooler and really push your CPU incrementally, of course,
Right.
to find the sweet spot.
Right. Yeah, and currently I'm still using the one that came with the computer.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's for anyone out there who wants to look this up. It's called an all-in-one liquid cooler. So like you never touch any liquid. It's all sealed. It's all closed circuit. And yeah, you pretty much screw it onto your processor, and it transfers the heat through liquid off to the fans. Pretty neat solution. I would probably recommend it, but I'm definitely looking for something more. But hey, Darius, we are just about out of time. The last thing I wanted to complain about is Best Buy. If you're listening, I am disappointed in your lack of cooling solutions and computer parts in general. Best Buy doesn't sell computer parts anymore. It's a shame.
Yeah.
It's crazy. They only want to sell you a completed system. So whatever. That is another annoyance for another day. Darius, thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America. This was a lot of fun. And if people want to find out more about you, what you're doing, what you're up to, where can they go?
Just Facebook me, take a look up. I'm on Twitter at Koosh3D, and my website is horrible right now. I still have to get that up, but that's koosh3d.com. I've just been lucky enough to be too busy to really turn my sights on that kind of stuff, but eventually I'm going to have to.
As at least it is on the radar. So everyone, once again, Mr. Dariush Derakhshani, and he will be back next month once again to talk about another wide range of topics. And Dariush, last time, thank you so much. Have a good one. See you later.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
All right, bye. And everyone, have a great day. See you then. Bye-bye, everyone.